with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody
Good morning, councillors, staff and invited guests. I'd like to open the meeting and I'll do acknowledgement of country to start with. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today, the Darumbal people, and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to our neighbouring Aboriginal peoples within our local government area, the Gungaloo Nation people, the Barada, Kabalbara, Yetamarala people, and also acknowledge the Torres Strait Islander people whose land is in the Torres Straits but who live and work on Aboriginal land. I'd like to invite Pastor Robert Banks to the podium just to give us a blessing this morning. Thank you from the Lighthouse Baptist Church. Thanks very much, Bob.
That's it. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning and for this opportunity to pray. So let's pray together and ask this God's blessing on this meeting. Our Father in heaven, we just pause now to recognise you as the giver of all things. And as we gather together, I thank you for every person that is assembled in this room. I thank you for the hearts and the minds that you have brought to the table today. And as decisions will be made today that will impact our city, not just for the present, but for the future, Lord, we ask for divine wisdom. We ask for your grace and your whole discernment that you can grant to every single person here today. Help them as they work together effectively and efficiently. And Lord, we know that there are people in our country now that are in difficult moments. And we thank you for what you do in their lives and how you protect them. We thank you for the protection of our city. And today we do ask that you would grant opportunities to people to continue to further and advance the development of our region. And we know that every single person here has been placed here by you. And we just thank you for their input. We thank you for all that has accomplished in their lives to bring them to this moment. And we don't count this a light moment. We count it a very serious moment and a sober moment that you've granted the opportunities that you've given to all of us here to further what you want done in this place. And we ask for all your power and enablement in this meeting, and we ask it in the name of our Saviour, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pastor. The agenda. Call for apologies and leave of absence. Councillor Rutherford, I'm sure she's on her way. Confirmation of the previous minutes, councillors. Can I seek a mover? Mover Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Declarations in interest in matters on the agenda, councillors. I know Councillor Smith would like to inform the meeting. Councillor Smith, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I haven't got the number. Sorry, I'm just trying to get more.
Item 10.11, is it? The
10.11, talking about the Mount Morgan Heritage Minerals. It doesn't mention Poison Creek Road, where I have a conflict, but it does mention Burnett Highway, Razorback Road, Gordon Lane, and Poison Creek Road is actually in the middle of that road network, so I'm not sure whether I've got a conflict of interest or not. I'd just like to take it to the table.
Due to the fact your brother...
My brother and sister and her husband own all the property on the western side of Poison Creek Road.
So, councillor, you're wishing to participate in the meeting?
I'd like to,
That
because
item?
I've got some questions.
Yep.
I'd like to
Okay,
participate in the meeting.
Councillor, we'll put that Councillor Smith may participate in the decision, including by voting on the matter. So, can I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that? Move Councillor Mathers, seconded Councillor Latcham. I'll put that. Those in favour? Motion's carried. Thanks, councillor. So,
Thank you.
that's right, councillor. Oh, we'll have to, name everyone in favour. So it's Councillor Williams, Councillor Mathers, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Kirkland, and Councillor Latcham. And that $20 into the bin for that one.
Christmas Club.
Christmas Club.
Mr Mayor, I have another conflict.
Another one, yes,
as
Councillor
well,
Smith.
with the leases for the... I've got to try and find that one too. The leases for the...
The 10.8, the freehold lease for the Trustee Lane Renewal Parks, Gracemere Hack and Pony Club.
Yeah, I think I ascertained last time I don't have a conflict with the Pony Club, but I do have a conflict with the Atherstone Tennis Club, because my nephew works for Tennis Queensland, and he has a lot of association with the Atherstone Tennis Club.
So with the freehold lease for the Gracemere Hack and Pony Club, do you wish to stay for that meeting, or would you propose to leave?
Well, I'm going to be leaving anyway. Oh, okay. So with the Gracemere Hack and Pony Club, it's another pony club, and I'm in the Boulder Cane Pony Club, an instructor, and I don't believe I've got a conflict with that one.
So that's not a paid, it's a voluntary
It's
role?
all voluntary.
Yeah. So you wish to stay to participate in the discussions?
With the pony
Okay.
club, but
Yeah.
not with the tennis.
Okay, well, we'll just get the wording for that, and I'll seek a mover and a seconder for Councillor Smith's wishing to participate in that. Move Councillor Kirkland, and seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. So we'll go around with the names. Councillor Mathers, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Rutherford, Councillor Kirkland, Councillor Latcham, and myself. Councillors. Your third item, Councillor Smith, is the Atherstone Tennis Club.
Yeah, that's the one I just...
You propose to stay away
I
from
propose
that
to
meeting?
stay away with that one, thanks.
On that one?
Yeah.
Okay. We have a further conflict there with Councillor Shane Latcham. Informed the meeting has a declarable conflict of interest with the freehold lease with the Athelstane Tennis Club. Again, and Councillor Latcham, you propose to stay away from the meeting and not participate. Thank you. Councillor Rutherford, you have a light on? Do you have a conflict?
Well, yes, except just through the CEO. I thought once we had it voted that it was...
You don't have to come back again and do it, no.
No.
You don't have to.
So it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's for us to remember all of those conflicts of interest. It's pretty hard for us to do, so councillors should just remind us
yep.
that we've already dealt with it or whatever else. So, yeah.
So I thought Councillor Smith had done that last time
On the horse
on the lease.
pony club one,
Yeah,
I think.
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's the whole thing, councillor. We need to be reminded of the officers, so we can't remember all your conflicts of interest, so you have to go through those ones. Let me know the night before, or let Linda and...
Yeah.
So it was a different matter. It was a show.
I think I got advice from CEO last time with the Pony Club.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had a conflict, so I probably didn't mention it.
Didn't mention on there. Now it's being recorded. Yeah.
Mr Mayor, I need to keep a big folder for all my conflicts so I don't get confused.
Okay.
So just to clarify, I don't need to raise mine again? Does it?
No, if you just want to,
Okay.
Yep.
So I would have, on that lease item as well,
You got
I would
Vicky
have
Park.
yeah, and that was,
Victoria Park Gymnastics and Trampoline Club.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
that-
been
Yeah.
decided previously by council.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll pick that up and put that in the minutes, councillors.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. It's quite a number of
Yeah.
items there that we need to be mindful of.
Yeah,
as we
it's
go
administratively quite, like Linda's fantastic at doing this and she remembers the whole lot, but realistically, we need the councillors just to, well, as part of the act, send me a note at night time to say council dealt with X previously, this was the outcome, and then we can just include it here, so it's on the public record.
So it
again.
probably wouldn't hurt, for your own record keeping councillors, just to keep a note and a file of that as well.
We've
So,
got a special file actually, cabinet
for all of that, yeah. Okay, moving on, we've got quite a large agenda this morning, councillors. We move on to item 6, lifting matters from the table. 6.1.
So this is the one we've got a
Yeah, it's an
conflict,
administrative
so-
one, this is just an administrative one, you're not
So
actually
we
making a
don't-
decision,
okay.
so it'll be fine.
Okay.
Yep. I need a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Wickerson, second Councillor Mathers. We'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on, public forums, deputations nil, presentations and petitions nils. Councillor delegate reports. Item 9.1, Councillor discretionary fund application. Councillor Latcham, Emmaus College and Frenchville State School Primary P&C associations. That approve a donation of $1,000 to each from Councillor Latcham's Zoo for association experience, and $700 to Legacy Tree Planting. Seek a mover and a seconder with regards to those. Move Councillor Smith, second Councillor Wickerson. Put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 9.2, leave of absence for Councillor Smith, Wednesday 25th of August to Friday 10th of September 2001 inclusive. Happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Mathers, I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 10, officers' reports. Advance Rockhampton. 10.1, Rockhampton River Festival, tender consideration plan 2021 to 2023. It is pretty much as that report there, same for that tender consideration, so I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Kirkland, put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. 10.2, Rocky Nats tender consideration, again, plan for 22-23. I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Councillor Wickerson, put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carry. If there's no questions. Moving on to 10.3, Small Business Friendly Council, SBFC. Yes, yes. 10.3, so councillors, any questions or regards to that one? Small Business Friendly Councils. Councillor,
Are we not presenting reports?
those two, if there's any questions, if you want. Yep. on those two, but would you like a report on that one? I just thought they were pretty self-explanatory, those tender considerations, unless there was questions, councillors. But if you'd like a report on that one, Greg, would you like to give a report on 10.3, please? This is a different one to the first two, councillor. I just thought the first two were pretty standard reports. Thanks.
Yes, morning, Mayor and councillors. If there were any questions on 10.1 or 10.2, Annette Pearce is online if required. In relation to 10.3, the Small Business Friendly Council, this is something that has been running around for a little while, and we're stitching up the loop that about 15 councils are now signed up to this. It's being run by the Queensland Department of Small Business, and it's been running by the Small Business Commissioner, Marie Adshed. So most of the major councils are now signed up or considering signing up. It has a number of benefits. One, obviously we give the perception that as we are a small business friendly council, we also then gain access to resources from the Small Business Commissioner's office. We also get exposure on the SBFC website as well. And then, as in the report, the flip side of this is if we don't sign up, there may be a perception that we are an unfriendly council. So we certainly wouldn't want to give that perception, because I certainly do not think we are an unfriendly to small business. We're certainly supporters of that. So I suppose from my point of view, it is my recommendation for council to sign up to the SBFC program.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Councillor Kirkland, question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to ask Greg, were there any annual fees or membership fees associated with this?
No, councillor. There's no annual fees at all. It's really an initiative by the Small Business Commissioner, so no cost to council. There will be a small reporting function that will be handled by Advance Rockhampton each year, but I'm led to believe that's not an arduous task. It's really reporting on what we may have done during the year with small business, and I think that's something we would report on normally.
Thanks, Greg. Councillor Rutherford?
I think you've almost answered with Councillor Kirkland's question there, Greg. I think it's great, so there's no issue there, but often these things, the devil is in the detail, and I'm just wondering, while I read in the report that a number of things we already do and we can easily answer, is there likely to be something pop up? And I know it's crystal ball stuff, but in the future that sort of commits us to something that we weren't prepared for.
I suppose to answer your question, councillor, through the chair, of course, I don't know of anything that may pop up. I did represent council at the SBFC conference, and it was really an informative type situation there. It doesn't mean that a minister or the Small Business Commissioner can't come out with something, but I think they would need to consult member councils, for the want of a term, before they made any radical decisions that started to burden councils more so or added cost. Because each council would have to consider their position again at that stage, would be my recommendation. And
a report would come back to the council if that was the case,
yep.
Greg? Yep. Thank you. Councillor Wickerson?
Thanks, Mr Mayor, through you to Greg. Greg, obviously there's benefits there for council, but the benefits to our local small businesses, have we got a mechanism to promote that to our own people, so we know what's in it for them?
Yes, councillor. Once we sign up to this, we'll get access to all those resources from the Small Business Commissioner's office, and she assures me that, assuming they're not in lockdown again, that she will also make a visit and do a session for us and for small business. So last year, I think it was in my first month here, the Minister and the Small Business Commissioner came up and did a small business conference. That was their information gathering exercise to then launch this program. But they assure me that they will be back to sit down with small business, talk about what those benefits are, and including Advance Rockhampton into that exercise to make sure we're selling and also understanding those benefits.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just Greg, page 17, I thought it was interesting. You've got our local government association has all these registered local businesses and the list of them, because we were always sort of told that retail trade was the biggest employer, and yet it's at the bottom of the list. And I'm really chuffed that agriculture, fishing and forestry is second on the list, 13.7%, but I suppose that's every property that's got this registered as a primary producer. That would be their numbers in there. I can understand construction being at the top, but I was just interested in those figures and where we should be looking, because they keep saying that healthcare and social assistance is the emerging industry, and yet it's only 7%. I just wondered, was there any message in those figures at all?
It's probably something that'll come out in the workshop later in the month, Councillor Smith, sorry, and through councillors. It'll come out at the workshop later in the month when we have our Profile ID presentation on all of these sort of statistics. But those are straight from that Profile ID statistics website. So there are some growth industries in there that we'll make sure we add into the economic development strategy process.
Yeah, just through the chair. Thanks for that information, Greg. It's a pretty good report.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Smith. Councillor, if there's no further questions, can I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation? Move Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Latcham. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to Communities and Heritage, item 10.4, the Community Assistance Program, round 1. Alicia, would you like to present that report? Councillor Wickerson, did you want to, as a portfolio chair, have any comments on that?
No.
Good morning, councillors. This is round 1 of the Community Assistance Program. So the applications have been received and they've been evaluated by the panel and then put forward for recommendation. Largely, there is the theme in terms of the continuing events theme, but probably just flagging for anyone who's listening, as well as councillors, that we are reviewing this Community Assistance Program. We were meant to do that last week. In terms of refining some of our criteria. So it should be, my anticipation is that the next round we will see those new criteria moving forward. Councillors, I also circulated further information around a couple of events which you had questions for last night, but I'm happy to take any other questions for you.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Councillors, any questions around any of those ones? They were all answered from yesterday. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I guess my only question is the Mount Morgan Promotion Development Inc., the soundscaping, the Mount Morgan Railway Museum. I noticed there was only one quote in there. Should there have been 2 quotes or more?
So that would have been brought into the criteria in terms of the consideration. I guess we, in terms of that criteria, ideally it's 2 quotes, but you can't always get that. So that brings into the criteria for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Rutherford?
Happy to move, Mr Mayor.
Happy to move. The seeker seconder. Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 10.5, the Silo Rejuvenation Project follow-up report. Thanks very much, Lisa.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So this one, councillors, we have pulled a report together and we've also discussed this last week in terms of some of the detail at the workshop. I guess from the initial proposal, we certainly had concerns over, I guess, the vesting of those cyclones and whether or not it would become council assets or liabilities, as the case may be. In working through all the considerations, it is simply would look like a donation to get a piece of art or promotion onto the silos. So there is no sort of asset ownership. It would be a straight impact to our financial operating statement. In terms of the value over as to how much, so the project itself is the $100,000 or what they're, I guess, seeking. We haven't made judgment, and I guess I'll defer to Greg as to whether or not it's worth, I guess, that investment from a tourism perspective or so happy to take, I'll defer to Greg on that. That's the only piece that I guess we haven't heard from in terms of our previous workshop.
Might talk to Annette. If Annette, would you like to speak to that comment from Alicia about the tourism value of the Silo project? Thank you, Annette. Oh, sorry, Annette, we can't hear you. It's must have your mute on. No, sorry, it's still not coming through. We might have some technical. Is it?
Is that better? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Did you hear the question? Did you hear the question there, Annette?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Oh, she might be able to hear us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
She can.
Can you hear us?
Clearly not.
We might be on mute. Doesn't look like that one's going to work. Thanks, Greg.
Love technology. Annette and I had a brief conversation about this. From a tourism value, we're certainly not negative on the tourism value. We don't think it offers significant value. It certainly adds to the Rockhampton region offering from a tourism perspective. Some of it will come down to the...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, but can you hear us? I don't think you can hear us.
Some of it will come down to how much of that car park space is actually given over. Some of it will also come down to access to the site, and some of it will also come down to the amount of truck and other traffic around that site, making it accessible to the everyday person that wants to go and visit the silos. So first, it will certainly add to the regional offering. Very hard to put a number of potential visitors or an economic impact from a tourism point of view on that at this stage.
Okay, thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Annette.
Okay, sorry, just adding to that. I think, sorry, and I didn't hear some of what Greg said, but it does add an attraction to the region. I'm sure that's probably what Greg said, and it does add to the trail. We would be the most northern silos in Queensland. So it would enable a circuit to include that as part of the art trails, and certainly it's something that Explore Rockhampton could promote and would add to our other initiatives such as Drive Inland and the other drive markets, and obviously could be promoted both on our Explore Rockhampton and promoted via the Visitor Information Centre. So it adds value, whether it's a driver to the region. I would think the benefit would be more around that. See the silos as part of their visit, and from that we would target getting them to at least stay the night in Rockhampton or spend some time here, and then that does add to our visitor economy.
Okay, thanks, Annette.
So I guess, Mr Mayor, in terms of the recommendation, it was sort of to defer to the next revised budget, but in terms of a value, we haven't made any assumptions in terms of whether it be a joint project with other parties or whether it be a whole of council project, and I guess that's for recommendation and discussion to the table.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I think that I've expressed previously that I think that this is a fabulous opportunity for us to brighten up that northern entry into our city, and certainly to potentially capture some extra tourism as a result of people putting the posts up of their photo outside the silos. There's been a considerable sentiment from the community that they also think this would be a great addition to our art stream, if you like, for Rockhampton. So I am very keen to put forward just a slight amendment, if I could, and perhaps stimulate some discussion around price.
It wouldn't be an amendment, it would be actually a motion.
A motion.
Propose a motion.
Propose a motion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's a motion. Like,
That's not, that's the
it's a
council, that's the
recommendation?
officer's
Cool.
recommendation.
So let's just propose a motion then, that council consider funding the 6th silo artwork project at Lily Place, Parkhurst, and to talk about the value. Can we do that now, or I'll just put forward a value of 100,000?
Yeah, so
Yep, to the value of 100,000 at the next revised budget. So we'll talk about it at the next revised budget. Any funding would be conditional on council's approval of final artwork.
so you're happy to move. Do we have a seconder with regards to that motion? Moved, seconded, Councillor Wickerson.
I've got a question.
Question, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, in the list of the expenses where they get this 100,000, I'm just wondering where it states the preparation of the surfaces, like those old silos have been there for 100 years, and I think it would cost a lot of money to prepare them for the painting, or is that included in the 89,000?
Yeah, that's included in that.
Yeah, so
that's included.
through the chair, the discussion was that they're also trying to get sponsorship from, say, Dulux, and they're also using some of their own equipment in terms of that preparation, which will certainly reduce some of the costs involved.
Okay, so that was my question as well, through you, Mr. Chair. What other funding? It doesn't say what other funding they're seeking. There seems to be we're up for the 100,000, but I was hoping that other parties would join in and fund it as well. But
Yep.
we've got no guarantee of that.
Probably getting into the debate side of it there. We've got mover and a seconder there. So further question?
Can I move we suspend standing orders?
Yep, happy to do that. Move suspend standing orders. Then we don't need a seconder. Yep. I'll put those in favour. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Lights, Councillor Mathers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, I agree that this is an interesting proposition and project. I'm just struggling a little bit with the amount of money that we've got to spend. I think the money could be spent better.
But that may be you may be getting into debate.
Debate. Okay, sorry. No, that's right. So the
question if.
Yes, sorry. So the question I do have is obviously with the artwork, we've got some sort of saying what's there, but I noticed there that there's mention of Great Keppel Island and the coast being included. So, I'm wondering whether is this something that we could either look at seeing if there's other funding available, or is this something that we could possibly look at, talking to Livingston Shire Council in going shares with, to portray the entire region and share the cost.
I'm not sure. You probably need to put another dot point to the recommendation, or an alternative motion if that's your view on that, because it's not captured in the recommendation. Okay. So I'll go to further questions. Sorry,
just to add, Mr. Mayor, just to that, in terms of the complexities, because it is not our project, so we would be, I guess, donating. Drew's mentioned that we would do, I think, a deed of agreement or a agreement between us that they deliver and what they deliver. So that is how we would control, I guess, the artwork element. But depending on, this would be my view, is that if we were to contribute the whole 100,000, well, that's the size of the project, so we would have complete say. If we were to contribute, say, only 20,000 or something, well, then we wouldn't essentially, because there'd be other players in that project to also keep happy. So depending on where that value rests, would be, what the expectations are in terms of signing off that agreement between us.
Which is why I put the proviso in there that we have, if we're going to do 100,000, then it'll be conditional on our approval of final artwork.
Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I guess two things. Firstly, has it been benchmarked against other silos that have been done? Is this a reasonable figure? Is probably my first concern. The second one is, given its location and that there's a block of land to go in front of it, it could be blocked out. And I've got concerns if that is going to be blocked out, then the public probably won't even know it's there. So that's probably another concern I've got over it.
Yeah.
Again, that's probably getting close to debate. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Alicia. The other alternative, and it will make it much better than what it is, but if we don't do anything on there, and assuming no one else picks up the project either, it's an eyesore as it is. So I think that's the negative side of it. We're not only making something that's okay better, we're getting rid of that whole...
Again, is that a question, Councillor? It's probably getting into debate. Sorry.
I'll follow up with a question, totally different. Will we be looking in the near future to finalising our community arts policy, our public art policy? I think we did look at that at one stage.
It certainly, I believe, is an action that is outstanding. It's probably not at the top of the list at this point in time with everything else going on, but it's certainly been out there in terms of public art. If you look across our budget, though, councillors, there's limited resources for that, and the concept being is that with new projects that come in, that then they also keep an allocation for the public art to beautify it at the same time, rather than us come along afterwards and try and do something with it. Similar to landscaping, which we've talked about at length as well. So it's part of that project to make placemaking, I suppose, for the projects.
I just think some of the questions that we brought up about how long it's going to be there and our tenure of it should be covered off in a policy for future stuff that comes up. That's all.
I guess it's a little bit different because it's on a private asset, this one.
Yeah.
Greg?
Councillors, through the Mayor, just from a costing point of view, the only project that I could really find was Yalarbin down in Goondiwindi. Mayor Springborg approved through their council. It was $195,000 for 8 silos done over 2 stages.
Thanks, Greg.
Probably if I go back to Councillor Wickerson's, I'd be through an agreement, Councillor Wickerson, we'd have to tie all of that up, not so much through the policy side of it, but through some form of agreement between us and JRT.
Yeah, for this particular one, yeah.
No further questions, councillors? Councillor Smith?
Just to Alicia, what guarantee, what is, say if this is approved, if the motion goes through, the report doesn't actually say we'll probably have an MOU, but how tight will our agreement be with JRT for access and for everything else to do with the silos? I'm just a little bit concerned about that, the fact that it is private land.
So yes, through the chair, so it won't be an MOU, it will be a deed of agreement. So it is a legal agreement between the two parties. So that next level up. But I believe Drew is also online if he wants to add comment there.
Yeah, Drew, did you were you able to comment on that rather than an MOU, a deed of agreement? Could you explain that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. Definitely a deed of agreement, so it's legally binding. We could, in the agreement, in our discussions with Brad Nevin of JRT, was that we would state the square meterage of the car park. In our discussions of the car park, and that would be made available for public access. We did talk about how many parks there would be. He then responded with, well, we would look at we don't want to say how many parks because they envisaged that it would be single cars, caravan car combos and RVs. So they would just look at quite a space there to be able to accommodate the combination of those 3 things. The agreement would include insurance. It would include the amount of time that art would remain and be maintained on the silos. And like I say in the report, we struck at about 15 years, and possibly with that thought that if, it was worthwhile to cycle back to refreshing that after that 15-year mark. So the agreement's would be legally binding, much like it is when we have a grant from state government or federal government.
Okay, thank you, Drew. CEO?
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, I might just throw a couple of things on the table here. One is we have to go through the budget, have to get through the revised budget. That's probably the biggest hurdle we've got. As the recent weeks have unfolded, things aren't tracking so well at the airport as we've got, so that's that part on there. This next part is do you wait for the 100,000 to go through a revised budget, then start the agreement or the discussions? Because there's two bits to that. One is setting up the expectation if you start now before you have the money in the revised budget, or do you wait to go through the revised budget and then start the deed of agreement or an agreement? There's a bit of work around that one. And that's probably what poses. And if you were to start the agreement now, you'd actually include that in that amendment, would be to say successfully executing an agreement that would deal with the funding of the approval of final artworks, the ownership and access and whatever else. You just include some words in there, I would have thought.
And what about matching funding from other
If that's what council, you probably do that to seek other funding.
Or whether we'd do the whole lot. Yeah, that's a question.
Effectively, what I'm saying is, we're going to put some of the cart before the horse, or we're going to wait for the horse to come through, being the funding, and go with that one.
Yeah, that's a difficult thing. Yeah. Okay, councillor, if there's no further questions, we'll resume standing orders. I'm happy to move that. We'll go into debate. I'm happy to move. Go into the official debate. Councillor Kirkland, please speak to the motion.
Yes, thank you. I think that this is a wonderful incentive and initiative that's been put forward by some forward-thinking business owners, and for us to get on board is showing our support, and certainly that this silo artwork is positioned well. I think in answer to some comments there about potentially being built in, that there is a property to the side which potentially could have some buildings built in, but the frontage, well, it won't be built in because that's a natural detention basin there, there's grass and everything there. Then I would like to suggest that perhaps we add into the, can I add into the motion from here, or do I need to make another motion?
Depends what it is and whether you get...
Just listening to what CEO said about the budget, and certainly about that agreement, putting a point there that we'd like to make sure that that agreement is in place to accommodate the final artwork and that sort of thing.
Ownership and access.
Yeah, that'd have to be
Just an
amendment,
and
but in the second.
Do I need to get a seconder for the amendment?
Yeah, mover and seconder to do it. If they both the mover and seconder of that, and if the council are happy with that moving, that's what we did last time, if the council recall. So we'll just need to word. So any funding would be subject to. What would be some words there, Greg? You got some words? Subject to a successful deed. Sorry, Alicia, you too.
Yeah, Drew, did you want to add something there? You had the words rattled off before. No?
Yeah.
There's just a delay with me getting back on, sorry. Look, I missed that part of the discussion.
So if we were to, so then if we were to add to the resolution that any funding would be subject to a successful deed of agreement with JRT?
Yeah.
Which outlines...
Yeah, funding would be subject to, is it both parties agreeing to the deed of agreement?
We can possibly play with that, but so which outlines the number of car parks or the car parking space available.
Yeah. Okay.
The length of time the artwork should be on display. What else, Drew?
Insurance. And...
Access.
Final artwork also.
Yeah, and yeah, final. I think I did say that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. I had in brackets some of the things. So as enduring period of art, RRC's creative input, agreed car park size, public liability insurance.
Yeah. We might get that sent through to us, through to Linda, if you could.
Can I ask a question?
So that's the second last bullet point in the report.
Okay.
Mr. CEO.
Smith, the question?
Just a question to Alicia. What say JRT sell the premises?
We would have that covered in the deed of agreement, which would
be in the agreement.
Would perpetuate onto the new owner.
By mentioning the owner there, I just thought we should, with the current
landowner.
Landowner.
Not going to, sorry, councillors, you're not going to cover every nth degree of a deed of agreement in a council meeting, but the intent.
Just we'll cover that if it's never sold. Because if we
so just through the chair, the deed of agreement would be enduring, so it would just be novated to the new owner if that lot, what will be eventually lot 12, was to be sold. My understanding is at this stage they have no plans to do that.
Perfect.
Councillor Rutherford?
Sorry, can I?
I don't like doing this on the fly.
No, it worries me because I also worried a little bit about whether this becomes a competitive project in the revised budget or whether it automatically takes precedence in the
This is what it would do if you do the deed.
Yeah, it'll be competitive because you don't know what other things you've got sitting out there that'll come through the revised budget as well.
No, sorry, so does this automatically say that this project is funded
No.
in the revised budget, or, because that's how I read it.
Council consider funding.
Consider.
To me, consider funding.
So it has to get through a revised budget
correct.
process first.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So if the mover and the seconder are happy with that, and the council vote for it now, if they're happy with that
Okay,
resolution.
councillors, are you happy with that is included in the motion itself?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, if I could just cut in. I can't see the resolution, but just to make sure that it just says owner, it doesn't actually name owner.
Yes, we've
In the-
amended
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Drew. So, councillor,
So just wrapping up on my,
you get to wrap up after the debate. So you speak
yes.
to the motion to start with, and that's in favour. Speaker against the motion. Councillors, I have concerns, and mainly to do with their financial position. And I understand the recommendation is subject to the revised budget, but just the financial position we're in with the COVID and the airport revenue, just don't want to paint a picture that this project's a given. That we do need to make sure that we have all the information ahead of us, and when there's other projects there that we may need to be finding money for as we go forward with it. Speaker in favour of the motion, Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, I'm very torn as well, but I think the project is a very good project, and when we look at what it costs us to do beautification, particularly at the entrances of our region, we know the struggle we've had with the roundabout at Yeppen. So, 100,000 for beautification with what we've spent is probably on par. So I think it's good value, particularly out there because it's, the new works is a concrete jungle with very little room for soft plantings, landscaping or anything. So I think it would play a very important role in that entrance, the northern entrance to the city. I am concerned, like you, about the cost and where that money will come from in a revised budget. So I'm probably given a little bit of confidence here that if we carry this through, it has to sit and be competitive against every project. So it just leaves it on the list. And if then we can't find the money because things are still tight, or we know they're going to be tight, but there are other things with a higher priority, then it just leaves it sitting there for us if by chance we can find the money. And that's probably where I'm sitting at the moment.
Thank you. Speaker,
Sorry, just to clarify, just for the officer's sake, it goes back to the comment I made when suspended standing orders there, is the deed subject to funding? Because probably I could read that both ways at the moment. I could actually start off and do the deed and you would actually give a false hope to, or false expectation to potentially the owner that you go through all this and then the funding will come available in the revised budget? Or do you put the words in there to say that the deed is subject, the execution of a deed is subject to appropriate budget allocation given at the revised budget?
So that's what I thought I asked you just before, and you said because the word consider.
Yeah, then I've come down and read the second line, and it says any funding, and that's put the doubts into, just to clarify that around.
Okay. Which,
Sorry about that, Councillor Rutherford. So.
Or do you just put once funding becomes available?
Yeah, once funding becomes available. Once funding.
Are the movers and seconder happy with that?
And then just move to a successful deed of agreement. Should be with the owner. Yeah.
Again, that's probably coming from Councillor Rutherford's question there previously. Linda? Sorry. Councillor Kirkland, as the mover, are you happy with that change to the wording?
I think it's actually by saying once funding becomes available is putting it into cement that we're going to fund it. By saying we're subject to funding.
Yep.
Subject to funding.
Okay.
Becoming available, the successful deed of agreement with the owner.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just being clear, I am not moving on the deed of agreement or any negotiations until we've got to the point of revised budget. That's our intention here?
Yes, that's the intent.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thanks.
That makes a little bit... You're happy with the amendment change to that wording?
Everyone's happy?
Should we have would outline, like should is one way or the other, but would is or will?
I think the subject at the start, Councillor,
It's
covers
saying it
off on
should
that.
outline it, but it doesn't have to.
I guess my reasoning
Just
through
being-
the chat, it has to be an agreement between us, so that's what we're aiming for, but at the end of the day, the agreement between, unless they're deal breakers for each of us, all of those can be subject to regular updates when we get to that point anyway. That outlines conditions.
Yep. Yep, yep.
In actual fact, the second paragraph is sort of superfluous until you do the first one.
It is, but again, it's probably just given that to the officers. Yep.
At least with the second paragraph, it does give some intention of council that it will be considered, and these will be the conditions. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so we had a speaker against...
For.
We're back to...
Not back to against.
Councillor Mathers, no. Back to the mover to wrap up.
To wrap it up, wow, that was interesting. So, yep, definitely. I think that this is a fabulous project. I congratulate JRT on presenting it and turning what is absolutely, as Councillor Rutherford has said, currently an eyesore coming into town. It is a concrete jungle coming into town at the moment, and I think it'll be a beautiful addition, and it will also give tourists the opportunity to stop for a second, have a look at our heritage village, perhaps go across to the shops, and who knows, stay overnight. And so it'll be promoting our region, and I'm sure it'll hit the Facebook pages and others once it's done. And I look forward to the presentation and the completion of this project. Let's hope that we can get it across with our funding, and if we can't, then it'll be there for future reference. So, thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
You. Okay, councillors, if it concludes the debate, I'll put that those in favour. Those opposed? You want to record? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item 10.6, the tender consideration plan for Rockhampton Museum of Art. Alicia, thank you.
So, Mr Mayor, I do have Damon online for any of the technical questions, but essentially this is the way in which we address purchasing of, I guess, artwork or things where it's not reasonable to get competitive quotes. It's very difficult to evaluate because with art it's so unique and it just doesn't fit our normal procurement processes. So, councillors, this is a tender consideration plan which outlines both a number of artists as well as educators that would be called upon to provide services to us, and each of those services are unique in their own right. So this, and as we've discussed at our previous workshops, this is where we rely upon the curator to, I guess, get a product into our future art gallery so that it does appeal to the widest possible audience, and then how we judge that is basically on the success or otherwise of that venue. Happy to take questions, or even Damon online also.
Okay. Councillor Wickerson, Portfolio Spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm in support of this and happy to move in a moment, but just one question is, does this cover, Alicia, travelling exhibitions? Like when we first looked at the whole gallery project, we're excited about the opportunity to get major exhibitions that we might see going around other places. So this seems to cover individual artists, but does it go or there's an intention to go further than that with major exhibitions to attract them to the gallery too?
Yeah, so this is for a period of time, through the Mayor to Councillor, this is for a period of time, so it basically covers us off for the first part of the opening of the gallery. But as you can see, because of the previous resolution there and then time with COVID and things have moved on, we will continue to update those things at any point in time should new exhibitions become available. So remembering there's a long lead time for those things.
Yes. Thank
you. Question, Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Through you to just Alicia. The tender consideration plan, Alicia, that you're saying that does have a time limit. Is that a 12 months or?
This one is for the range of exhibitions from 21, 22 and 22, 23.
Okay, so it is, that's two. Yeah, 23. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. No further questions. Move Councillor Wickerson. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kirkland. I'll put those in favour. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 10.7, Portfolio Chair, Councillor Rutherford. Any discussion on 10.7, sorry, the resource...
I'll hand to
Community Infrastructure
Angus
Fund.
or Anne on this one. Anne.
Mount Morgan Pool, did you...
No, Mr Mayor, I'm happy to
hear the
defer to
officer's reports?
Yep.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. I'm here to ask for recommendation that council submits an application through the Resources Community Infrastructure Fund for the Mount Morgan swimming pool refurbishment. The grant closes later this month on the 27th, and leadership team has been presented with a number of options that could be put forward for this, or has looked at what options are available for funding under this program, and has decided that the Mount Morgan pool is the one that fits best I guess the spirit and intent of the grant program. Does anybody have any questions about it?
Questions with relations to that grant application? No questions. Councillor Smith? Yes.
Just in the report it says it's open to resources communities. So we're saying that, does that apply to Mount Morgan Town itself or Rockhampton Regional Council? Like, would they consider Mount Morgan a resources community?
Yes, I actually did seek advice from the grant administrators on this, and it would apply to Rockhampton as a local government area. And I feel that we do definitely qualify. While we don't have any mining per se that's being conducted in the area, a significant proportion of our workforce and our economic development is related to the mining industry, and that is one of the criteria that they look for as well. So it's not just that you have resources, I guess operations in your LGA. You can also be one that supports that. And I think given Mount Morgan's history as well, that qualifies Mount Morgan in particular to be considered a resources community.
Yep.
Okay, my second question is, so are we going for 3.5? Because I sort of worked out we've committed 2.5 and then we've got 500,000 in the budget. We're saying forward budget 4.5. I'm just a bit confused about the...
Yeah, we're still finalising costs, but the estimate at this point is for a project that totals $6.5 million.
Yeah.
500,000 of which we are probably spending will be actually fall outside of that, the grant period. So what we have in the budget currently is 2.5 million, so 2 million of that will actually go towards the project, leading to us probably asking for $4.5 million for the project.
4.5. Okay, so would they give us, could they give us just part of that? If we're sort of half successful, what would happen then?
Well, I mean, it's like, I guess any grant program is kind of like that in that they may decide, depending on I guess, the subscription to this grant program and, you know, deeming who needs the funding more. It could be that we could receive less than what we're asking for, or, you know, we could receive everything. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
And so I was just further to what you've just said. It says that the fund can cover 100% of the project.
Yes.
Why would we not go for 100%?
Because looking through the guidelines, they actually do kind of flag that they would look more favorably on projects that do have a contribution to them. And because we did have that in our budget, contingent on you know, securing funding, that was looked at as, we'd probably be looked at more favorably then.
Does the project, do we anticipate it to cost more because of the heritage listing and the age of the...
No, not that I know of. I'd have to defer to Andrew Collins or Alicia, who have, I guess, a greater understanding of some of that. But we did do a tour of the area. Our approach is going to be that the swimming pool, it's in dire need of upgrade. There's no question about that. But however, the area as a whole needs to be looked at as a, you know, in that precinct view of things. And as a community asset, the pool is really kind of the linchpin of that, or a critical piece of that community recreation area. And we're kind of putting this forward as this will be helping to further other development of that area as a, you know, a community space. I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, and councillors, just to add to what Anne was saying, because we did look at the whole site, because you want it to work as a whole site together. So the playground's pretty good, but the squash courts, that's sort of right in the middle of the two, is kind of making it a bit, it doesn't work as a whole site together, shall we say. But the other aspect or the problem is, in terms of the grant, is because remembering we haven't done the detailed design, so the cost is largely unknown at this point in time. So we know a circa figure, which is what we will use for this grant, but until we get to the detailed design and decide what's in scope and out of scope, it will sort of be largely unknown.
Yeah, this grant will cover some design costs as well. So the project, you know, that we're putting forward does include some design work.
And then just a voice of...
I don't know what the voice is, but I'm just going to add a couple of comments. We're right, we haven't done the detailed design, but we haven't done the concept design. So the next step for the council is to come back and workshop what do you think you're going to get and what do you want up there, because we haven't got a scope. I've got a site, I know where that is, and an old pool, I've looked at that, but is the pool, is there wet plays, is there heating, what is it in this pool? Because we will dramatically change the cost, and we can only do that when we've done the workshop to get the key principles of what you expect up there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Peter.
So that number there is just a...
aspirational.
We've made an assumption on no heating, a standard kiosk, minimal wet play. You know, it's a basement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Anne, did you want to further comment?
No, just that we're proceeding with getting information together for the grant application right now.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Councillor Rutherford?
So I think we should certainly put the application in. I think that's a no-brainer at all. I'm just wondering whether if we've gone for base elements, just at a guess, I'm wondering whether we should go for something a little bit more.
You should have kept the mic.
There's two things. It's a small program, $50 million total.
Yeah.
And when I say basic, I'm saying what would be required for a normal community pool. So, but, I am conscious that you might go, we want this to be the same as Southside. If you do that, we're in trouble. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that for a minute. It's just that we never seem to have quite enough money, so I just
that's
wonder
because
that...
we're trapped again. There's a grant that's ideal, and we haven't got a design or a concept.
Yes.
So
it's
But we know the pool needs to be...
yes, we know the pool has to...
Yep.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Latcham?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I do have a lot of concerns about another gold-plated project that maybe the community doesn't even want, given the low attendance rates at the Mount Morgan swimming pool. As I understand, probably doesn't even justify it. Is it what the community needs? If we get it for free, yes, but then the second part of the equation is what's the operational cost to keep it going? And if it's not getting used much at the moment, or previously to it being closed, that's a consideration. That has to be a consideration. We've talked about wanting to know what is the cost of running things, and that's a big consideration. Yes, the project sounds great. Probably a splash park is all I probably need if that's what it is, but I'd be pushing more for the 100%, not any contribution towards it. Yes, it'll be great for Mount Morgan.
Yeah, I think they, as mentioned before with Anne, that we stand a better chance of getting some funding if we got a contribution towards it. The Mount Morgan community deserve a pool. And this one been 110 years and really neglected for a long time. So I think as far as that goes, and I think there's other options. Should this not be successful, we need to work our way through that. But not providing a pool is probably not one of those options. I think we need to look at what we can go forward for that community, as there are schools and other users there. And again, if something's old and tired, a lot of people won't use it. You put something new in, you get a lot more usage out of it. So, and then the operational costs again would be considered part of that as what was previously provided in that space. So, again, yeah, I'd just urge caution on that. This grant, if we're successful with it, will give us something there that we can provide to that community without having to burden the rest of the ratepayers with that. Further questions?
So just to add to that, Mr Mayor, and when we did the tour last week, I guess the site itself, because of a small community and the low socioeconomics, like it does tick a lot of boxes in terms of the, being able to have swimming lessons, the schools available to it, just in terms of going for that full funding for such a project, when we've already prioritised it in our own budget and said, right, we will make this money available to do something with the site. I think it'd be a bit of a stretch to pull back and say, oh no, you can fund it all now.
So, if I may. Yeah, so this is about resource communities, and we're in a situation where we're a resource community that doesn't actually have a mine to put money towards it. So the ones out west, they've all got mines that contribute to community projects. So this is an actual gold mine that doesn't actually exist at this point in time, and does not actually contribute like other venues would, or other coal mines and stuff would. So I guess this one's a little bit unique, which would probably lend itself to maybe aiming for higher towards 100%.
Councillor, as I mentioned just before, there's less chance of getting the grant if we try to go for the 100 beds. It's only a limited pool, pardon the pun, but what we're trying to achieve is getting some grant funding towards the project. And then again, we need to assess that once, if we're successful, about what we can deliver through the design.
Can I just add one little thing there? Because we don't have mines in our area, we have to make this application as attractive as possible. And the ways to do that are by making a contribution and also pointing out what it will actually do for the community of Mount Morgan. And the grant is very specific about that the nature of these projects has to benefit the community, and they are very much looking for things that benefit disadvantaged communities as well. So that's why I felt it was a good match for it.
Yep. Thanks, Anne. A number of lights on. I'll go to Councillor Mathers.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Through you to Anne. Anne, I'm not sure. Hopefully you'll be able to answer this question. I agree that the pool is in dire need of something, a repair or a rebuild, whatever it may be. But the concern that I have is that if we have $2.5 million in the budget for this, we're talking about $6.5 million. If we put the application in for the grant and we are only allocated, say, $1 million, are we then committed to finding the other $3 million and going ahead with the project, or can that then be put on the back burner? Do we still lose the...
Just because they offer you some money doesn't mean you have to take it. Yeah. So, no, you can decide. You're not committing to anything when you put in an application. You're saying we'd like this to proceed. If for whatever reason they don't offer you, it no longer makes the project viable, both in our eyes and in their eyes, and they don't want to see that go ahead. No. So.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Along the same lines as my learned colleague. Two things. If we don't get the amount of funding that we're seeking, or we get the designs back and it's way above that $6.5 million, and I'm very anxious about going in any project where we don't know what the concept or the final, we've been there before and it never ends terribly well, but is the criteria for the funding that it has to be new work? I mean, we describe it as refurbishment, but does it have to be? Can we go back? And everyone loves to have something that's brand new, but can we go back and then say, look, we might be able to restore what we've got there with lining the pool? And
no, yeah, they're quite clear about that. Any restoration or improvements, they won't fund any maintenance. Any work actually has to be of a certain kind. So they won't do repairs, they won't do maintenance and things like that. It doesn't have to be brand spanking new, which is why an upgrade will work. But looking at this project, we actually decided to change it from being an upgrade to being something else, because we're actually doing much more work here than just purely upgrading something. The pool itself is a non-standard size, which means that it's limited in terms of its ability to hold swimming carnivals that, of a competition, and not saying that you'd have competition, but it's not the standard size that most schools would need to have for particular records and things like that. So there is a need to actually put in something there that is more useful and meaningful there, and that's more than just an upgrade then. So.
Okay, thank
you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Peter, you mentioned a wet play and kiosk. Are we looking at incorporating that into this proposal? And the other question is, will it be heated? Because they have a heated pool there that's sitting there empty. So would it be are we looking to heat it as well?
No. All I'm saying is we've prepared an estimate for this submission, and we've had to make some assumptions. We will come back and talk to you, but at the moment it has a kiosk in it. It does have a small element of wet play, and it is not heated. So but it is to standard size, it's a modern pool, new filtration systems, all those things. So.
Okay, so I just wondered how big is the wet play we're proposing? Because that sort of takes money off the actual pool that we're
it's quite a small area off the end running on the existing pump system, so it's not like an alternate independent wet play. It's just putting a little bit there at the edge of the pool.
Again, we don't want to build expectations. We'll see what the funding comes back before we can start to progress on that.
I was just concerned that's taking funding off the actual pool, which is what we're trying to make better for the community, the pool.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to move. I think we need to We have committed to doing something here. We need to start looking for sources of funding. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to go to. It's too early to really discuss the project, what the project looks like, and you know, maybe if we get money, we can cut the project cut the cloth to the funding, maybe. You know, so I'm happy to move.
Okay. And seconded, Councillor Wickerson. I'll put those in favour. Those opposed, carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, just gone 10:15. Do we want to stop for a recess? So we've got quite a large agenda there, so we might take a 10-minute recess and resume at 25 past, if that's okay. Thanks, councillors.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
the ups and downs.
Just gone 10:25. We'll resume the meeting. We'll move on to our next item, the freehold lease and trustee renewals for the parks. Councillor Rutherford, did you want to, as a portfolio spokesperson? Conflict of interest, Councillor Smith and Councillor Latcham. Okay. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I have Justin online for any specific type questions. So, councillors, this matter was presented to the last council meeting, laid on the table and has now been lifted from the table. So, at our workshop last week, we discussed, I guess, the number of facilities and the leases and the pros and cons in terms of approaches to some of these leases. And at the moment, the way you see this resolution is basically the same as what was proposed in the meeting 2 weeks ago, with slight changes to wording in respect of fees and charges to clarify that they're set each year in the fees and charges document for council. So the other aspect is that the majority of these leases all own their own buildings. So I think it was 14 out of the whole. So in terms of the condition of the buildings, that wasn't an issue because the ownership rested with the facility themselves. Councillors, I am happy to take any questions. We discussed quite a lot of detail at our workshop last week, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, councillors. Questions? Councillor Rutherford as a portfolio, or Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I actually have no issue with the officer's recommendation. We had a very robust conversation, obviously, around this in the workshop and everything with regards to this recommendation. I do have some wording that I'd like to add into a motion, and I've asked Karen, got that over there. And my reasoning behind this additional wording comes from that workshop where we found that previously assessing the leases, there was some requirements from the lessees to present to us on an annual basis, financial statements, their constitution, their AGM minutes and member numbers and that sort of thing. And I think it's an important thing that we continue to do that and to implement that and make sure that it's part of the process, so that we can establish each 6 years when we come out and do the lease renewals, the viability and sustainability of the organisations wanting to lease. The reason for that is that we've got so many viable organisations.
Councillor, you're going to speak to the motion, or we probably need to move in a second if you're going into speaking to the motion.
Well, do you want me to put the motion up then?
Yep.
Alrighty, so this is
Well,
the wording around
the wording's
it.
there, yep. So you'll need a seconder for those.
Just let everyone digest it first.
Yep.
Can I just ask a question before I second it? Because I'm just not clear with dot point 4 in what that means.
May I answer through that? Is that all right to answer that? Yeah. Through the workshop, we established that it would be potentially wise for us to have a community leasing policy around what the expectations are, so that that's set in not in cement, but certainly into the format of a policy to review in future, so that there's no questions around what our leases are and what the structure of them is.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'm still not sure, because once these leases are signed up, they're signed for 6 years.
Yes.
So I don't know what a workshop in early 22.
Well, it wouldn't refer to this particular one, so perhaps that would be a separate motion, if you'd like to put it as a separate motion. Item 4.
No, well, we need a seconder for this one before we start to...
sorry, it'll be up to the mover, sorry, Mr Mayor, it'll be up to the mover if Councillor Kirkland wants to leave 4 there. If Councillor Kirkland wants to leave 4 there, seek a second from that.
Yeah, so why don't I'll remove 4 and foreshadow a second motion for a draft community leasing. So we'll make that a separate motion, Karen, and I'll just foreshadow that.
Linda, thank you. So we've got a mover and have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second.
You're seconding? Seconded, Councillor Rutherford, yep. Councillor Kirkland, speak for the motion?
Yes, I think I've probably already spoken to it a little bit. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Right, I'll speak against. Again, we're going back to putting more red tape onto our sporting organisations that are run by volunteers. We had this in as part of council previously, a requirement, and it was voted on to remove it because it put more pressure on to the to those sporting organisations that struggle doing that. And the real advantage of that information being provided to council, who's going to look at it, is the other question to make those assessments. And then would they put a recommendation to not support a club with their lease? So they're my reasons for not supporting that recommendation. Speaker for the recommendation? Councillor Wilkinson?
You're not for?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, in favour. Those things that we're asking of those clubs are documents that they should already have. If they're a constituted club or any bona fide club, it shouldn't be a huge... I understand what you're saying, absolutely, but I don't think it should be a huge impost on each club to provide that to us. You know, every club should have a financial statement every year and a constitution, and minutes from their AGM if they have one. I've just had some experiences in the past with clubs that, just as a general member, that are a bit shoddy with how they run their meetings, I think, and that's not very healthy. So I think this would be one way of motivating clubs to run their clubs viably and properly. And if they don't, well, there's other clubs that are doing the right thing that we could probably make facilities available for. So. Thank you.
Another speaker against? There are no more speakers against. I'll go back to the mover to wrap up debate.
Yes, thank you. And echoing again what Councillor Wickerson has just said, that it would establish with us those organisations and in themselves to actually be of a standard that represents the institution that they are, that we would also have a viable reference or a credible reference when we're deciding which organisations are sitting in the wings might be quite viable and can't get a facility, and we've got someone sitting on a facility dormant because we don't know what they're doing or what they're not doing. So I think this would be great information for us to have every 6 years to refer to, and I'd like to move the motion. Do we need to read it out?
No, sorry.
Do we need to read the motion out? Or?
No, that's fine. It's part of that.
Am I able to ask a question?
Questions?
Yeah, question.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Through you to Alicia, just on page 74, Alicia, it just says note that the nature of these renewals do not facilitate multi-use or other sporting clubs, which would be beneficial when other clubs are looking for a home. I just don't understand why that would be beneficial.
So through you, through the chair, sorry. So back to that. Remember, these leases are exclusive leases. Yeah. So we talked last week about us playing a matchmaking type service. Yeah. In terms of if one club hasn't got utilisation, we can sort of point them into the direction of that club, but we can't force that issue. So that's the reason for that comment.
Okay, and I totally understand. I understand that we can't force that, but I'm just wondering whether we should make it so, you know, if we could make it so if the clubs were interested or happy enough to do it, you know, there should be no reason why that we couldn't facilitate multi-use in some venues if some sporting clubs were interested or in financial hardship.
Well, so from that perspective, they've got a lease document that gives them the entire rights to that facility through the 6-year period, it would take that organisation wanting to relinquish that for us then to have a joint agreement. Does that spell that out?
Yeah, okay, with you. So we'd just, yeah, if there was a situation, we'd relinquish that lease and then do a multi-use lease on the same premises. Okay, fine, thank you.
Councillor Rutherford, question?
Yeah, and it's probably just about a clause in the lease and where we stand around the use it or lose it type arrangement. So someone holds a lease but is not using the facility.
So in terms of the playing fields and the licence, you will recall that we've got that no play type policy, which then triggers, if that is triggered on the licence on a field, and then that would then trigger the lease of the building. Having said that, there is no functionality, no mechanism, if you like, to trigger the no use rule in a building, because they have quiet enjoyment of the building for that 6-year period.
Yeah.
So it's okay if it's adjoined to a field where there's a licence that can be triggered then, but if it's a standalone building, no.
So that triggers the lease over the building as well?
Yes, correct.
All right. Okay, still a little weakness there, but yeah, it's not one we're going to fix here and now anyway, so yeah.
Okay, councillors, the debate's concluded. I'll put those in favour. Those opposed? Can I record my vote against that one, please? Yeah, righto. People, Councillor Mathers, Councillor Wickerson, Councillor Rutherford and Councillor Kirkland voted for, and I voted in opposition. Yep, thank you. And we invite the other councillors back in.
Because the two councillors had declared a conflict of interest. And Councillor...
Yeah, did you further foreshadow motion there, Councillor Kirkland? Oh, are these ones still back in?
That was, Mr Mayor...
That was that item dealt with. This is a different... This is talking about leasing.
Separately overall, it's not talking about individual leases,
No.
this one.
Okay. Councillor Kirkland?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to propose that, put a motion forward to have a draft community leasing policy presented to Council for a workshop in early 2022.
You have a seconder? Councillor Rutherford? I'll put that. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that this is another part of just tightening up what we do and making sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's, and to have a community leasing policy would definitely do that. We've already had complications in the past with leasing of facilities, sporting facilities, whether they're, and as Councillor Rutherford has said, there's some weaknesses in that. So I think that this should shore up any of those weaknesses and secure a really good policy moving forward for our community, that they've got security and so too do we.
Thanks, Councillor Kirkland. Speakers against? I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, thanks very much, Alicia. Moving on to planning and regulations, item 10.9, proposed animal inspection program. I'll hand over to you, Doug, to report. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. The report this morning for the selective inspection program is seeking approval for our local laws officers to visit the properties of dogs that haven't been re-registered for the 21-22 year. This is a standard thing that we do every year and has been approved for the last several years.
Thanks, Doug. Portfolio spokesperson, Councillor Mathers, any comment?
No, I'm all good, thank you.
Right.
I'm happy to move that.
Happy to move. Seeker seconder. Seconded Councillor Smith. I'll put. Thanks, Linda. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 10.10, the development application for material change of use for a residential care facility. Amanda, thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. This application is for a proposal for a material change of use for a residential care facility for 12 palliative care beds at the to provide end-of-life care at 38 Agnes Street. Just as you can see, that's where it's located there. The subject site is located in the low-density residential zone and was previously a convent. The proposed development will see the existing facilities on site upgraded and delivered over 2 stages. Stage 1 will involve they'll demolish the left-hand, like in the red there, the rear of the site. They will also relocate their car park that's at the front of the site to the rear of the site, upgrade the existing facilities, as I said, and then construct the 12 individual accommodation units and ancillary rooms to service the development. Stage 2 will involve the construction of the lower ground level accommodation unit, which will be at the rear, which will enable families to stay on site while their loved ones are receiving care. We had it went under public notification for 15 business days, and we received 4 properly made submissions. In the yellow dots, that's where the submitters were located. The concerns raised were regarding the consistency with the zone, traffic, parking, and the bulk and scale of the development. The proposal is consistent with the zone, is unlikely to cause any additional amenity impacts. Sufficient car parking has been provided on site. There'll be 27 car parks. In addition, the current car parking is being removed, as I said, from the front of the building to the rear, which will improve the streetscape and the frontage of the site. Regarding traffic, Agnes Street has capacity to accommodate the development. In addition, the traffic volumes will not exceed an additional 5% of the current traffic experienced on Agnes Street. In addition, the staff shift changes will not be within peak traffic times. So for example, with the school, their shift changes will be after hours or quite early in the morning. Therefore, the proposed development is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Questions, Councillor Wickerson?
Thank you, Mr Chair, through you. On the, I think it's page 121, we're talking about car parking. It says there's 27 car parks. I couldn't see that on the site plan. Am I miscounting?
Yeah, I think there's some under the back of the building as well. Yeah, so yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's a bit hard to tell by those photos because they're depending on what angle, because the site falls away, and then so how the building is constructed, yeah, some are in behind. But there are 27 car parks, and that should be more than sufficient for the site, particularly that you know, taking into consideration staff numbers and obviously the care that's being received there. Yeah, we believe that's sufficient.
Okay, no, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Further questions? No. Yeah, move Councillor Rutherford. Do I seek a seconder? Councillor Wickerson? Did you want, Councillor Mathers? Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks, councillors. Moving on to item 10.11, the amendment application under the Regional Planning Interest Act for Mount Morgan Mine Project. Thank you, Tanya. You're right, yeah, you're right to stay in on this one.
Carbone Resources had the initial proposal, and it was for over 1 million tonnes of pyrite, gold and copper to be processed at the site. That's now changed. Another company, Heritage Minerals, has bought the lease out, and they're going to do an amendment to our assessing agency response. Effectively, the big change is they're no longer mining pyrite, they're only going to do gold and copper, so it's gone from 1 million tonnes per annum down to 4,000 tonnes per annum. That being a significant drop, we've changed our conditions. We're only allowed to condition things that happen in the priority living area that's set out in the Central Queensland Regional Plan. There's a road maintenance levy of approximately $2,400 per annum that they have to pay. There's only 3 truck movements per week. And the reason why it's coming to council is because I don't have delegations to decide it under the Regional Planning Interests Act. The state's the entity that actually provides the approval. We just give conditions as an assessing agency. So the conditions are recommended as in the report.
Thanks very much, Tanya. Councillor Smith, question?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Tanya, it says on page 118 that Heritage Minerals will require 100 tonne of quicklime per day. That's 5 truckloads. So that's 10 truck movements a day as well. So I'm just wondering where is that factored into their contribution? Because that 2,800, whatever it is for the year, that sounds pretty cheap.
It is, through the chair. The applicant had to do a traffic impact assessment, and we can only base our road maintenance levy based on what they've put through in the traffic assessment report, and that's the figure that they come up to with the truck movements per day.
Through the chair, but can't that be queried when they're saying on here that there will be 10 truck movements a day taking this quicklime up to the site? DNR&M, they use 1 truckload a day, but Heritage Minerals will require 5 truckloads a day. And I wondered why wouldn't that be in their traffic report?
Through the chair, I think it was. Previously, there was 36 truck movements per day. So they've significantly reduced that down with the lime delivery per day and the 3 truck movements per week.
Okay, just another question through the chair. Is there a requirement that load is covered as well? Because people were a little bit nervous about the pyrite being travelled through Barrie. Now, lime would escape a lot quicker than the pyrite, and I just wondered, for the sake of people being nervous about it, are the loads covered, but the empty loads covered as well? Because I think that was the thing that we talked about with the pyrites. It wasn't the actual...
Yeah, but this is not pyrite, it's only the lime. It's not.
Yeah, but we're just comparing it to what was going to happen before. I just want to know, are the loads going to be covered, loaded and unloaded with the lime?
Through the chair, I understand that the lime loads will be covered. I'm not sure about the trucks exiting the site empty.
Yes, because just through the chair, when Carbon Resources were going to cart the pyrite, it was the conclusion that more can escape an empty truck. What's the residue in the truck is worse than a full load.
It's lime, it's not pyrite.
No,
they're doing in less number of trucks.
If you quick lime is not real friendly.
Sure.
If you Google it, it's interesting reading.
Through the chair, we could possibly put a condition in the assessing agency's response that all loads are to be covered, regardless of whether they're full or empty.
Thinking of the people along Barrie that were and up Razorback Road that were anxious before.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Rutherford?
I think this is good, and I appreciate Councillor Smith's questions there, but when I was going through the report, it seems a little outdated. Now, I guess it's because they're putting an amendment to something that's already exists. Does it matter that it's outdated?
Through the chair, no, it doesn't. That information's still relevant to our assessment, so it's just the changes that we look at through the amendment application. Through the chair again, it was a traffic impact assessment report that was the one that needed to be updated and amended, and it has been.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, can I seek a mover and a seconder with regards to it? Move Councillor Rutherford, have a seconder, Councillor Mathers. Put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, councillors. Moving on to item... Unanimous, yep. 10.12, other changes to development permit for a material change of use for hotel extensions.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. Just wait for the presentation. Yep, thank you. So the subject application is another change to development permit D125/2017 for a material change of use for hotel extensions. This is located at 138 and 142 Denham Street, Allenstown, with the proposed development to be undertaken over 3 stages. This is related to the Red Lion Hotel. So the original application, D125/2017, was approved in February 2018 for extensions to the hotel and an ancillary car park. So those works have been completed, and that represents stage 1 of this proposal. So stage 2 of the subject application will repurpose the existing car park to become an alfresco area, which will be 180 square metres in size, and a new car park is proposed on the adjacent lot, which is 142 Denham Street. Stage 3 purely only looks at actually enclosing that alfresco area in the future. So this plan shows the extent of the proposed alfresco and proposed car park. The car park provides 20 parking spaces and an ancillary outdoor storage area as well. The applicant provided council with a noise impact assessment for the alfresco area. It will require the existing roof in this area to be treated with acoustic absorption materials. Furthermore, other physical noise mitigation measures include an existing concrete fence. So that's between the alfresco area and the proposed car park. There's an existing concrete fence there. And boundary fencing adjacent to the car park and adjoining residential properties will be 1.8 metres high, screened and double lapped. So this design is anticipated to reduce noise generated from those areas as well. So the development's expected to provide additional employment opportunities while enhancing the services offered to hotel patrons. The development's design and construction features, in conjunction with administrative controls, are anticipated to mitigate potential adverse amenity impacts generated by the development. The proposed development will not compromise the strategic framework of the Rockhampton Regional Planning Scheme, and no public submissions were received against this application. Therefore, it's recommended for approval, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Thanks very much, Bevan. Councillors, questions? Councillor Rutherford or Councillor Wickerson?
So I was just a little, the laneway, does that mean that the traffic is going to come and go through that laneway?
No, I didn't mention that, but that's purely going to be for service and delivery vehicles during daytime hours. So they're going to be able to use that access to come in and then leave the site through Denham Street. So it's purely only going to be for service and delivery vehicles during daytime hours.
Do we know how often that would be at all?
We got an indication to be like 2 or 3, something of that nature, a day. So we don't anticipate to be extreme, and they're not heavy vehicles either. So we didn't see that to be necessarily an issue. And there's a gate there as well, actually, where the narrow meets the back there. Yeah, there's actually a gate there as well, so they should be able to close that as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kirkland, did you want to? You're right, Councillor Kirkland.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was my question as well, but also I just wanted to make a comment really to see that it's good that putting in place extra parking when you're going to be extending your facility is a really good thing to see.
Thank you. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Following up from what Councillor Rutherford said, that access lane down the back, I did take the opportunity to have a look at that yesterday. Yeah, there is a fence on what would be the western side of that service lane, but there's nothing on the other side. It's open to that property, lot 1 up there. I think they're actually using that lane to informally access their backyard too, but I'm just wondering, as part of this application, could that be a requirement to fence that as well? I know that there was no objections received from that property, but maybe once delivery trucks are coming, even if it's only 3 times a day,
It was something we considered. It was just purely based on the amount of traffic. We didn't necessarily think that was going to be an issue. Noting the neighbour is informally using that access as well, but they don't really have a legal right to do so. So I did consider that, but because of the level of traffic, I didn't think that was necessarily needed. And it's only for daytime hours as well.
Can that be a later consideration if issues arise? Is there a way of writing that in if a problem comes up? I know we've had other applications previously from this applicant, and they've been very accommodating. I think there was a property 148 had some issues with that last development we put through, application we put through with some noise, and they were very accommodating to make amendments to ease that impact on the neighbour. So just wondering, is there a way we can write that in if it's not an issue now that it does arise?
Tanya, did you want to? Might just get the microphone if you could, please. Sorry.
Oh, we actually have a condition in the approval that if there is a noise issue, a complaint about it, then they have to do a report about that noise, and whatever recommendations get made in that report have to be administered by council. So if there is noise, we can say, right, well, you need to put a fence up.
Okay. So that covers that off. Thank you. Councillor Mathers.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through you, just to Bevan, just quickly, how many extra car parks are we actually getting with this? Because I'm mindful that the alfresco area or future alfresco area is replacing some car parks.
Yeah, so the existing car parks is, I believe it's 12, might be 11. I'll have to double check. So I believe it's 11, but they're going to 20. So I think that's above and beyond what they're actually required to do. So when they increase the gross floor, there's numbers associated. I think that's above and beyond that.
So there'll be about 9 extra car parks than what they've got now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rutherford.
Sorry, we're just... so who owns the access lane?
It's property 142. It's like
so it's their
a...
lease.
Like a
It's their
it's
lease.
private. It's a private access, yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, then, Councillor, if there are no further questions, mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Wickerson, seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to item 10.3, budget, governance and other matters. Motion to be presented to the 2021 LGAQ annual conference. Not sure who's... Ross, would you... Sorry, Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Between Peter and I, we can probably do that. The information is there. What we're trying, what Michael is recommending is to bring that funding back into the fore. We haven't actually included anything. We're not, this year's budget's not relying on it, but it's still something that a long-term impact that, and there's correspondence there that between yourself, Mr Mayor, and the Minister. That so that's what their recommendation is, just to put it through that process.
Yes, again, the tyrannies of distance in regional Queensland is a big impact, and the cost to recycle is not reflective in that, and that's previously why that grant's been available, that funding's been available, where the southeast corner is they're close to the markets and the access to those facilities. So we do our very best in recycling and promoting recycling, and to make that even more of an imposter to people living in regional areas is something there that needs to be considered. And I think that's that previous funding, to remove that without any real explanation is a real concern and impact to the ratepayers of the region. Councillor Smith, question?
Yes, sorry, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think that's great, what we're doing there. I've just got another... I've had a thought about another motion, but I haven't put it in an email, which I probably just forgot about. Can I mention that now, or do you want to put in two separate motions?
To general business even, or did you... Urgent business?
Okay.
If you want to put another one, we'll won't reflect that in this one.
Yeah, no, I think this one's...
Yeah. Councillor Latcham, would you like to move as recommended, as a portfolio person? And seconded Councillor Mathers. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. 10.14, letter of support, request from Drumble Enterprises, Tumara application. This is a retrospective report. Again, thank you, councillors, for your comments during that email that was sent around. I'll hand over to Matt to report on that. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Mayor. Good morning, councillors. As the Mayor just mentioned, this report is just seeking the retrospective approval for the letter of support that was provided to Darumbula Enterprise at their request last month in their application for a traditional use marine resource area to the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, which would be a lot easier to say they're applying for a Tumra to Garumpa. We have now provided that letter of support, which was circulated to councillors. While it does sit outside our local government area, supporting Darumbula Enterprises application is consistent with the outcomes we've agreed to under our ILUA, and the council table has also made a number of decisions around funding for boat ramps and supporting the Indigenous Sea Ranger program, which will all contribute to this. So happy to take any questions if there are any.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Questions? Councillor Rutherford.
What does it actually mean? And I get that it's retrospective, so I don't even know whether it's worth the discussion, but what does this actually mean in practice?
So probably the biggest takeaway for them is that gives them agreed hunting take numbers for species on the reef. Green sea turtles is one that's specifically mentioned in there. There's also some cultural management of the reef in the area involved. So similar to how when stakeholders come onto Darumbal country, we set a fairly high benchmark for them to consult with the traditional owners. The Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority has that similar kind of sway now. They can go to researchers and tourism operators and say, have you also consulted with the traditional owners? Although they use the words traditional custodians to describe their sea country.
So can hunting take place in green zones?
I'd have to come back and check that for you, councillor.
Yeah, so I'd be keen to understand, you know, whether green zones are still protected, whether endangered species are still protected, and who polices it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd just be keen to understand those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll come back to you on those ones.
Thank you. Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I can probably add just a little bit, my limited understanding, that the take numbers for traditional hunting are very, very low. We're talking about, you know, 1 or 2, I think, with dugong it might be, and I think they are protected. And it's not about the hunting per se, it's about the traditional connection to hunting rights and things. So it's more of a cultural connection than, you know, hunting for hunting's sake. I think it's not like what we might consider, you know, hunting. So I think the impacts are very well managed and also very low. But yeah, happy to hear some more information.
Yeah, and I think this is the 11th. If it's successful, it'll be the 11th Tumra agreement that Garumpa have negotiated now, and they're also a 10-year agreement. So they take that time to review things and make sure that everything's working along the way. So we actually, the Darumbal Enterprise Board are meeting this week, and I'll touch base with them after that and get a bit of an update, so I can also flag those questions with them then and get a bit of advice for you, councillor.
Mr Mayor, if I can just add, like, information and understanding is a big thing, and as I read this, it really doesn't tell me much at all. So I'd be keen to understand, you know, the bits of information Councillor Wickerson's just shared, and the rest of it. You know,
And again, councillor, I apologise, just the lateness in having this signed off to meet the timelines and reason for that emailing. Otherwise, a formal report would have been there. This is more just the tidying up of that letter and bringing that to the table. And those questions are quite legitimate, and we'll follow up on those from you, councillor. That's all part of being a councillor, is asking those questions and seeking that information. Thank you. So I'm happy to move. Seek a seconder. Seconded, Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to 10.15, fees and charges 2021 and 22 amendments. Thanks very much, Marnie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, councillors. So today we're just presenting an amendment to the fees and charges for 21-22. Since we adopted the fees and charges on the 8th of June and the amendments on the 22nd of June. The local laws team, building, plumbing compliance, customer service and FRW have identified some issues which require amendment for consistencies as per the attached summary that was provided as part of the report to change those fees and charges for 21-22. So I won't go through each of them, but they're presented in the report as well as in the attachment also.
Okay, councillors, questions to the fees and charges? And again, these fees and charges can be reviewed and changed throughout the year, not linked to the budget proper. If there's no questions, I'm happy to move as per the officer's recommendation. Seek a seconder. Seconding Councillor Rutherford. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Carried. Thanks very much, Marnie. Moving on to item 11, notices of motion. 11.1. Councillor Smith, you mentioned you may, I think there was a report associated with this one that was removed. Wait till that report's presented to council. So would you like to move that the matter lay on the table subject to that report? And I'll second that. I think we get the detail for that report that's coming about the show in the general. We can put that into the words as we go further on. Councillor, if no questions, I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Thank you. 11.2, notice of motion. Councillor Shane Letcham with the proposed travel. Councillor Letcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is something that the council table approved several months ago.
Oh, hang on, we'll get a seconder. Seconder with that one. Second, Councillor Councillor Wickerson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Sorry,
and obviously due to the lockdown in Sydney, I was unable to attend or will be unable to attend it. So just getting in early for next year for the approvals. So obviously if it is approved, it allows a bit more scope to get travel is easier to book and cheaper normally when you do it further out than at the last moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, speak against the motion?
Questions?
Question, yes.
Please, yeah, because I guess, does that mean it's coming out of this year's budget or next year's budget?
If the opportunity comes to buy the tickets and stuff in this financial year, it'll come out of this year's one.
Is that okay? Yep, okay.
Yep.
No worries, rightio, thank you. No further questions, I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Motion's carried. Thanks, councillors. Questions on notice or urgent business? Councillor Smith, you had a matter there with a notice of motion for the LGAQ annual conference.
And I do apologise, I wanted to send this around to see what people thought. And it relates to a councillor who is acting mayor, in the acting mayor's role for more than a month. I think they should be paid as a mayor. And this probably came about, and I will just say at the start, I have not discussed this with Councillor Fisher, but he was in the role for 3 months. And I just think if either an acting mayor or another councillor is in that situation where they are step up into acting mayor, like as well as a divisional councillor, he was also looking after his portfolio, which was 3 in 1 in those days. I'm not saying that we go back and pay him more, I'm saying in the future, I think if a person is in an acting mayor role for more than a month, they should be paid as a mayor. And I thought that would have been a good one to take to the conference.
Do you want to see that across the state if that's the case?
Yeah.
And again, the deputy mayor's paid a higher
yes,
rate.
But certainly not as high as a mayor.
And I think that's considered, yeah.
Yeah. No, I just thought, you know, a month, fair enough, but anything more than a month, I just think it's a little bit unfair on either a deputy mayor or another councillor that's in that role.
Ross?
Through the chair, yeah, that's okay, Mr Mayor. Council decide that. Also to consider is that you can make an annual submission to the annual review through the Remuneration Tribunal.
And that may be
and that you can make those submissions, and council can do that as well, or choose that way, or both, whatever. But just that avenue as well.
Just thinking that may be a better avenue rather than trying to get a motion across the floor at the conference without the full support if it fails. That's a thing. If you you wanted to go that way, or you're still keen to go that?
I'm not sure if you know, it's unique to us what happened, but it probably does happen in other councils, and I just think it's in other councils throughout Queensland. I just think it's a little bit unfair on that person.
Probably, Mr Mayor, if I could through this, it probably is maybe worthwhile actually going through the remuneration tribunal first, because they'll provide the reasons why the deputy mayor gets X amount above the other councillors, and that will then probably come back and inform some discussions around a potential motion to change the Act. And that wouldn't be done at this particular conference, it would be done at the next, depending on what their response is from the remuneration tribunal.
That may be the better.
Probably give you a bit more time to thrash out what you're trying to achieve.
A better avenue rather than taking it there, trying to get it across the floor. I just know that conferences, it's difficult without.
Yeah.
And to get all that
take
support.
it to the tribunal would be really good. So could we put a motion so it doesn't get lost and that we can follow that through?
Yep. Question, Councillor Mathers?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I just, once again, being new, but I would have thought that that's automatically the position of a deputy mayor. You know, that it's their job to step into the role if the mayor is not available. It's just what I would have thought.
Yeah, I think what Councillor Smith's talking about is a unique circumstances where there wasn't a mayor, the mayor had resigned and they'd gone up into that role, so it may be different than just whether it's annual leave or due to illness or something like that. It's a unique situation. So
I understand that, but it would be a very rare occasion.
That's right. Yeah.
Can I just respond to that as well?
They changed the legislation too, so...
Mr Mayor,
Councillor Smith.
it's just that a mayor doesn't have a division to look after and they don't have a portfolio, which happened with our deputy mayor, so I just think it's a little bit unfair. I think for a month, and that's 4 long weeks. And
Councillor, I think we've got the intent of that there, but we might just work on some more wording before we'd send that off to the tribunal for discussion. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And I guess that comes into, as I understand it, in the last 6 months prior to a new election, the council table has an option not to elect a person in that position.
No, it's not for a mayor.
12 months.
Not for mayor.
No, mayor, you've always got to have a mayor.
Always going to have a mayor. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay. Ross, did you... Oh, you right? You're right. Okay, so, yes, Councillor Wickerson, sorry.
Mr Mayor, I think the wording of that paragraph is probably not quite correct, isn't it? For longer than a period of 1 month, do we do?
Yeah.
could I just amend it, say that the deputy mayor or another councillor, so it might not be the deputy mayor. They might be away or...
Acting mayor, you'd have to have an acting mayor. If it was the council table, would have to nominate that. Again, there probably some more wording, there will be more wording that we're required to do before we send it down there. I'll send that off, sorry. Yep. I think the intent's understood, and we'll develop further around that and send that off to all councillors before we do send it off. You move, Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Latcham. Speakers for the motion? You probably did. You've had enough. The speakers against? No speakers against. Oh, speakers against. Councillor Rutherford?
Oh, Mr Mayor, I think it's covered. The deputy mayor gets awarded remuneration higher. I think that's taken into account. I believe all councillors step up when need be. I just think this is going down a track that we don't necessarily need to go down, and honestly, I saw it as an honour to have the opportunity to step up. So yeah, I just don't see it as a necessary thing. With everything that we're dealing with, I don't see this as necessary.
Okay. Another speaker for. Councillor Latcham.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In most, if not all other occupations, when you do higher order jobs, you normally get paid accordingly. So in this case, I think it's appropriate that they're working at a higher order, and as such should be paid accordingly.
Okay, speaker against. I'll hand it back over to the mover to wrap up.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think it definitely is an honour to be able to step up into that role. But I think for after a month, people have their own private lives and maybe businesses to run as well. Like we all have another life, and I think those people spend a lot of time in that role, especially if they're also looking after a division and portfolio. But that might be different with a lot of other councils. But I just think people need to be remunerated for that extra work.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those opposed? Do you wish to record? We'll record the Mathers and Councillor Rutherford record their votes against the motion. Motion's carried. Councillors, moving on to closed session items. Item 15.1 has been removed from the agenda due to needing further information provided in that report, that's just come to light. So that one will be removed. So there's two items there that...
And also, Mr Mayor,
and
sorry.
15.3, right, okay.
As well,
so it's only one item there, 15.2, councillors, which is the TMR early acquisition of council land. Could I seek a mover and a seconder that we move into closed session? Move Councillor Wickerson. Yep. And then move into closed session. That we move that to take that item into closed session pursuant of 254(3)G of Local Government Regulations 2012. Councillor Rutherford, question?
Can I ask why this one goes into closed session?
Yes. Ross?
Why we're not...
Why
yeah.
it was moved into closed session?
Yep. The first one, the airport commercial...
No, probably just this
Why
TMR
does
one.
15.2 go into closed session?
Kelly, are you able to answer that one?
Yes, Mr Mayor, the report actually details about contract negotiations.
Okay. So that's the reason why, is it in accordance with that section of the Act, Councillor, the reason why that one's going in? Seek a mover and a seconder with regards to that. Happy to move Councillor Wickerson. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Kirkland. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. And I'll seek a mover and a seconder that we move into closed session. Happy to move. Seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Taking the good with the ups and downs. I wanna see how the world turns round. Let's go adventure in the deep blue sea. Home is with you wherever that may be. Home is with you wherever that may be.
Now that we've arrived here, I would not change a thing. Knew that we'd survive here and all the goodness we would bring. Of this I sing. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming in sunshine, everybody feeling fine. Everybody join the front line, ain't nobody left behind. Everybody swimming.
Sorry, we'll need to just go on live first, sorry. We'll wait for that. Is that right? Councillors, just seeking a mover and a seconder with regards to the officer's recommendation there. Councillor Latcham, seconded Councillor Wickerson. I'll put that. Those in favour? Those opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, there be no further business. I'd like to thank all of you for your attendance and officers for the reports. Thanks very much, and I'll close the meeting.